So now that we can take a picture here, if we want to, let's make sure that we now also add a feature that allows users to add a location to the place they're creating. Now, to allow users to pick a location, or to be precise, to automatically get the location of a user, we'll use yet another Flutter library, another package which we can use, and that would be the location package. This is another package that exists to make using certain native device features, like getting a user's location, a bit easier, so that you don't have to write any native source code to make that work in your Flutter app. And as with all those packages that unlock certain native device features, you should therefore always, as mentioned before, take a look at the official installation and setup instructions. Now, of course, we'll start by installing the package with this command here. So that's what I'll do here in my project, running flutter pub add location. But once this was installed, you should, as mentioned, take a look at the README and go through the extra setup steps that might be required. Now here you, for example, learn that for Android, generally, everything should be set up automatically, though if you would be building an app that uses the location in the background, so whilst the application is running in the background, you would need to make some extra adjustments. Now for iOS, we again have to add something to info plist, and now here it's basically this key which we should add. This one here is deprecated, and this one here should only be used if your app really needs to access the location at all times, even if it's not running. So for our app here, it's only that key that must be added. Hence, back in this info plist, we should add this key here, and then add our text that will be shown on the screen. And here I'll say the location for your favorite place. Anything like this. With that, that should be all for Android and iOS, and we're now ready to use this package. Now, as always, of course, definitely take a look at their usage instructions on the official package page to learn all about this package and all about the different things you can do with it. And here we, for example, learn how we can get the location of the user. And you, for example, learn that you should always go through some extra checks to see whether this location service is enabled on the device. So if you can technically get the user's location, and you should also check whether you have permission to get the user's location. So therefore, I'll get back to this code later. Because for the moment, I will first of all add a new input widget, a location input widget in a location input Dart file, because I want to add this as a new input element to the add place screen, just as we added the image input there. And therefore here in location input.dart, I'll build this new input widget. For that in there, we can add location input as a class, and I want to extend the state full widget here because we will need to manage some internal state. And then, of course, you know how that works. We add a constructor function where at the moment I only forward that key. I add create state, as we always do, pointing at location input as a state. And we add that state class, the location input state class, which extends state connected to the location input widget. And then here we return a new instance of our location input state class. And then down there, we add the build method. And in that build method, we now output the widgets that should make up this location input. Now, as always, it is of course up to you how you want to build this. But here, I'll build it such that I'll return a column widget because I want to have multiple widgets above each other along the vertical axis on the screen. And here, I essentially want to have one container that will be used for showing a preview of the place that was picked. So basically a map snapshot, you could say, where I can see that picked place. And I'll get back to that container soon. And below that container, I want to have a row where I'll have two buttons next to each other. Two buttons because one button should use this location package to get the user's location automatically. The other button should later open a map where a user may pick a place manually. So therefore here in this row, I'll add 2 text buttons, which will actually also display some icons. So I'll use that icon constructor function. And then for the first button, I'll set the icon to a new icon using the icon widget, of course, where I want to use the location on icon. And the label should then be a text widget, a const text widget, where I say get current location, for example. And of course, we also must add on pressed and set this to an empty function right now. And below that, I have another text button with an icon where the icon should actually be the map icon, which looks like this. And the text could be select on map. Now we got these 2 buttons next to each other, and to row, I'll also add the main axis alignment parameter to control how these buttons should be positioned along the main axis. And here I'll choose main axis alignment space evenly, which simply adds an even amount of space around these items in the list. Now with that, if we go back to add place.dart, we can add this maybe below the image input and maybe with another sized box in between. And then there we can add the location input like this. And if we save that and reload, we should be able to go there and we see these 2 buttons. Now we don't see the container above these buttons yet. So that's something I'll change. Back in location input.dart, I want to work on this preview container. And there I'll give this a fixed height of 170 pixels and a width of double infinity. And then the same decoration as I had on my image input, hence we can copy it from there because I just want to make sure that I have the same border. I'll just copy it here from the image input and add it to this container here. And then I also want to define the child widget, which should either be that map snapshot basically once we did select a location. And until we have that, I simply want to output some text where I say no location chosen. And at the moment, that's the only thing I'll output here. And I'll add text align here and set this to text align .center to make sure that the text will be centered horizontally. And I'll set the style here and set this to theme of context text theme .body large with an exclamation mark to then copy it with some extra settings. And the extra setting I want to add here is, as so often, the color, where I'll again reach out to the theme and then the color scheme there. And on that color scheme, I'll choose on background. Now with that, this looks better. I also want to center this text vertically. And to achieve this, we can go to this container here. And of course, set the alignment to alignment.center. With that, the text is centered. And now, of course, the next step is to make sure that when we press this Get Current Location button, we actually do fetch the user's current location.